Welcome to the NBAV podcast. Welcome back to NBAV, the NBA Avenue podcast. And what I want to discuss today is none other than the biggest news to really come out from the last while, which is the DeRozen trade, sign and trade, whatever you want to call it, heading over to the Sacramento Kings. And this is kind of turned into the feel-good moment of the entire offseason. It hasn't been that long, but to me, this is the feel-good moment because DeRozan's been through some up and downs. He's a guy who was in Toronto for so many years and couldn't get over the hump. He gets swapped out so that Kawhi Leonard could move into place. Kawhi Leonard goes in there, and it's basically the same team as they had in years prior. Yes, they got Fred VanVleet undrafted, and we know all of that, but essentially they took their top guy, DeMar DeRozan, who was, let's call him the king of Toronto, and they shipped him out in order to bring in his replacement, which was Kawhi Leonard. And Kawhi Leonard then immediately went out one season, won the NBA title, just like that. It was really that simple, and you could say that it was basically because DeRozan wasn't good enough, and Kawhi Leonard was. And then what does DeRozan do? He goes out. He ends up in Chicago. He spends a bunch of seasons where they're just playing middle tier basketball. Nothing special. Nothing really showing that he's anything more than he probably not even as good as he was in Toronto. I mean, yeah, he's won clutch player of the year type things. He's done good work at the end of ball games, but they haven't done anything to separate themselves in any meaningful way. I mean, they haven't had a great seed in any of the last several seasons. He's really just been a sure thing to be in a play-in tournament, to be in one of those, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 type seeds. That's really been it. And then DeMar DeRozan also personally has been through a lot of up and downs, and he seems to be in a really good place right now. But still, he's a top talent, a real top talent. It's just that his team in Chicago has not been good enough, and he's not good enough as perhaps the best guy. But that's the beauty of this, is that he's not going to be the best guy on his team. He's going to be well behind De'Aaron Fox, who's obviously going to be the front runner, the number one man, the top scorer, the top everything on the Sacramento Kings, and that's going to stay that way in this upcoming year. And yeah, Sacramento had to get rid of a couple of pieces in order to make this happen. They got rid of Davion Mitchell already. They got rid of Vezenkov, and those were both some nice-looking young players. Davion Mitchell seemed to always play well for them every time he was out there, and Vezenkov certainly could hit the three-point shot. But they leave, and DeMar DeRozan comes in. And now you have to think, yeah, it's a feel-good story. DeMar DeRozan got an incredible, rousing applause when he came into that game. It seems like everything is just hitting at the right time for him. It seems like maybe he can go out on a high. Maybe the last few seasons of his career can be some of the best and most rewarding. But let's throw some water on this parade right now, and let's try to think about the fit. For the most part, Sacramento does their best work when they're moving at high-octane speeds really, really quickly. When they played their playoff series against Golden State, it was with De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk and Davion Mitchell hitting some big threes and Keegan Murray playing well in some games. It was going quick. That was how they did it. Sabonis wasn't great. And when the Sacramento Kings are at their best, it's not when they're going through Sabonis. It's when they're going through Fox and Monk. They kept Monk at an incredible number, 4 years, $78 million. I couldn't believe that they actually were able to retain him for that kind of money. Then they bring in DeRozan on top of that. But how does DeRozan fit with Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox? I would say that DeRozan's best addition to the team will be that when De'Aaron Fox is off the court, you now have DeMar DeRozan who can plug in. And not only that, I know that Fox and Sabonis like to run the handoffs, but for the most part, I think that DeMar DeRozan will actually fit better with Domantas Sabonis than maybe even De'Aaron Fox does, because he's used to it. DeRozan is used to playing with typical centers or typical power forwards, and he's played with a lot of guys. He played with Vucevic. He played with Andre Drummond, just in Chicago. I mean, he's played with these type of players before, and Sabonis maybe a little bit undersized, maybe is supposed to have more of a passing element to his game, but for the most part, he's the same style of player. He doesn't do anything. He's not like a spread the floor big man. He's not shooting threes really. He's not doing too much. So I think that this plays really well into their hands where DeRozen can come in and spell parts of the game where De'Aaron Fox is not going to need to be relied upon to the same extent as others who, in the past. De'Aaron Fox is going to be able to take off the couple of minutes in the fourth quarter, have DeRozan in the game there. And then the question is going to be, how are they going to run at the end of games? How is it going to be when Monk is on the floor at the same time as Fox and also the same time as DeRozan? There's still only one ball. And DeRozan is still better in the mid-range than he is in the three-point shot. Yeah, he'll hit the three-point shot from the corner occasionally, but from straight away from the wings, that's not really the strong suit to his game. We know him very well at this point. We know what he does. So the question to me is, how is it going to work when all of those guys are really out there together? That's probably the biggest overall question for me from the Kings. Then the Kings also go and they bring in McLaughlin, right, who was in Minnesota for the last couple of seasons, and he's a fine-looking player. He's nothing special, nothing outrageous. He's not going to have a big role if the Kings make it to the playoffs, and I say if because that's just how crazy tough the West is. Every team in the West, except for maybe the Blazers, and is a good team. And then you have the Spurs bringing in Chris Paul are going to continue to get better with Wembanyama going into his second year now. The Thunder got even better, and the Grizzlies have John Morant back. And the Pelicans got better, bringing in DeJounte Murray. So everyone's getting better. No one's really going downhill, except for maybe you could say the Denver Nuggets got a little bit worse. But as long as Jokic is there, there's only so low that team can possibly dip. It's going to be an even bigger gauntlet than last season, unless there's just crazy injuries going up and down the entire Western Conference. So if you have to look right now, and you would take a look at the Kings, the Sacramento Kings payroll, and you could take a look at beginning to end and say, this roster, last season versus this season, and they've got, right now, it's Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox. Kevin Huerter, still there. We still haven't seen him really hit his potential with this team. Keegan Murray, they still have Trey Lyles. They brought in Devin Carter. Keon Ellis still going to be there. And then they've got DeMar DeRozan now. Alex Len is back. Malik Monk. This is a really, really good team. Very, very impressive team on paper. And then the question is just going to be, ultimately, how does it shake out in the minutes that DeRozan, Fox, Sabonis, and Monk are all on the floor together, with maybe Keegan Murray or Kevin Huerter in that final spot. Let's say Keegan Murray. How does that closing lineup look? Will the two clutch player of the year candidates be able to play together and win ball games? Because that's all this team really cares about. They're not going to care about awards anymore. They're not going to care about clutch. They're not going to care about sixth man. Malik Monk already came out and said that he doesn't care about being the sixth man. He wants to go back into the starting lineup. And we'll see how it works out. I've looked at a couple of other press conferences, and I watched the Klay Thompson press conference, and Klay was extremely chill about the entire thing, about leaving Golden State and going on and becoming part of the Dallas Mavericks. And he made it like he wasn't in Golden State for the last however many seasons. He was so calm, cool, and collected about the whole thing. He said that when Scottie Pippen went and signed with his team that he rooted for, the Blazers, it was one of the best days of his young life. He was thrilled as a kid to see Scottie Pippen sign with the team. Even though Scottie Pippen had played all those years in Chicago. And now Klay Thompson is comparing that, and he's saying, look, things go well, and then sometimes you need a little bit of an injection and to get it going. And Klay Thompson is saying that this is going to do that for him. He's saying he was watching, and he was watching the Mavericks, and he sees that they're a team that's ready to compete for a championship, and he's like, I want to go play for that team. Didn't seem to really care that he was picking up and leaving. He had good moments, but he was just super, super chill. It didn't really seem like he was that tied to, It didn't seem like he was tied to the Golden State in the same exact way that we really thought he was all this time. He was more chilled about it than probably most of the fan base was. And then you look at the Chris Paul press conference. It wasn't really anything happening there. Chris Paul just saying that he loves playing basketball, which is kind of a dig at Golden State, because aside from the points in the year when Chris Paul was hurt, the big knock is that Chris Paul is saying, you guys didn't play me enough. And he's saying, I really want to play. And I know that if I sign with the San Antonio Spurs, I'm going to get plenty of time on the court. As much as I can possibly suit up and play, I'm going to be playing. And that's the truth, because they don't really have any better option than Chris Paul at point guard right now. So Chris Paul's going to get to play as much as he wants. And when he's tired, he'll go out. And as soon as he's not tired anymore, he'll go back in. So there's that. And then probably my favorite press conference, even though the DeMar DeRozan one was really, really good, was the Mikal Bridges one. Because you watch Mikal Bridges and he's talking about how you guys are hating on Tibbs. You're saying Tibbs overplays his guys. I was playing the entire game when I was on the Suns and Monty Williams was the coach. And he referenced how Monty Williams played him in a game where he was sick, and the game went into overtime, and he was defending De'Aaron Fox the entire game, and he played 56 minutes. And he says he doesn't even know if Monty Williams knew that he was sick. So people are complaining about that, but what's the difference? Mikal Bridges plays every game anyway, so who cares if Tibbs is going to play him every game? And this guy is perfect. This guy is unflappable. This guy is down to earth. Mikal Bridges was the absolute perfect guy to join this team. He's going to play every game so that when OG Anunoby gets hurt and he misses some time, the Knicks are still going to have a top wing defender out there. This guy is a godsend to this team. Anyone who thinks that the Knicks overpaid, given the circumstances, given the fact that they already had all the teammates and all the infrastructure in place, and you are going to say, hey, the Knicks gave up too many picks to the Nets? Who cares? What are you going to do with the pick when your team is at the top of the league? The Knicks still end up with some good talent. I mean, they still got Kolek. He's just as promising as any second-round talent. The Knicks still got, with their first pick, they still got a guy who has all the athleticism. There's plenty of young talent. There's more young talent right now in the league than there's probably ever been. If you watch some of these summer league games, you see, I was watching Memphis play against, the 76ers, G League squads. They were playing the summer league. I was watching the Sacramento Kings. You have Kenny Lofton Jr. going out there, and he's not on the Kings anymore. I believe now he's on the Sixers, and Kenny Lofton scores almost 20 points in every single game. You have a guy like Ricky Council go out there for the Sixers and score 29 points the other night. Ricky Council is a guy who should be in an NBA rotation right now. I saw him play in person when Embiid was out. And he looked like he had some real legitimate talent. There are so many guys. There are guys who are capable of scoring 20 points in any summer league game. And some of these guys will have real roles in the league. And if you look at the Memphis Grizzlies team, the Memphis Grizzlies in this G League, in the summer league roster, they still had several guys out there who have already been part of their NBA rotation from the last year. Now, I know that their team was really bad, but these guys are already real NBA players. Jake LaRavia is an NBA player. If he wasn't on Memphis, he could get a spot on another team. And you can tell that he's more polished when you watch him in Summer League. And when you watch some of the other guys, you watch Philly play with Jeff Doughton. The guy just looks okay because he got to play a lot when Embiid was hurt. He got to play for the 76ers. There are so many players like this throughout. There's just somebody in every single game who looks unbelievable. Memphis Grizzlies, they throw Gigi Jackson into Summer League. They have so much talent that they had to give up on a guy like Kenny Lofton. You have Edey out there. Edey is going to... I mean, he looks like Yao Ming. I don't know if he's as talented as Yao Ming, but he's got the body. He looks absolutely enormous. He can block shots. He can just get a lot of open dunks. And then on the other side, you had them playing the Jazz, and Walker Kessler is out there, still as a super extremely young player, which tells you that they're probably not going to end up trading him, because if they wanted to trade him, then they wouldn't be playing him in Summer League on the off chance that he could get hurt. So Walker Kessler is out there, and Edey scores on Walker Kessler on one end very easily with a hook shot, or the baby hook, And then Walker Kessler goes down the other way and scores on Edey because Walker Kessler has the speed. And you see, hey, these are the different styles of play. You have the guy who's more nimble and quicker footed, and Walker Kessler, who can maybe block some shots with his speed, and he can get up and down the court a little bit more easily. And then you have Edey, who brings to you that real old fashioned style of basketball where he's just going to be hard to stop out of his sheer size. And these are all just young players, all of them. And you have someone like, for the Jazz, you have Keontae George. And I would look at Keontae George and I would say, you know what? He goes on a list of guards in this league right now where they're really young and there's been a lot of buzz about them. And I don't know if I really see it because Keontae George put up a lot of stats in some of these summer league games, but then he doesn't really come up so enormous throughout the entire game. He kind of gets his stats at random times. I haven't been so thrilled with him, and I would put him into like this strange point guard class where you also have guys like Anthony Simons, where they show talent, and we're not really sure how far it's going to take them. And maybe even the top level of a guy like that would be Darius Garland, where he looks so good and he's so talented, and then you're not quite sure if he really contributes to winning basketball. He certainly didn't in games where he was the starting point guard this season and Donovan Mitchell wasn't. So we have kind of a nice little sample size there of some guards who, they're young. Yeah, it seems like they're good, but we don't really know if they could be real pieces that can actually elevate your team in terms of wins. And I would say the same about Colin Sexton, but Colin Sexton, I think, is a guy who could be on a championship team as a six-man, as a backup guard, or really contribute to any team. I think that he's just a guy who, yeah, he's never going to be the best or second best guy on a team, but he's not a guy like Anthony Simons where you take Anthony Simons and you say, hey, you have the talent to be a starting guard in this league, but if you're the starting guard of my team, I don't know if we're going to be in the playoffs. I don't know if we're going to be out of the playoffs. I don't know if we're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. And then you take a guy like Colin Sexton and you're like, okay, if we put you on a terrible team, the team will still probably be terrible, but you'll elevate them slightly. And if we put you on a really good team, you'll probably elevate them to be near the top of the league. So Colin Sexton, I think, is going to take any team and elevate it. Anthony Simons, I don't know. Keontae George, give him a couple more years. I don't know. I don't know if Darius Garland can really elevate a team or if he's just a guy who puts up good numbers. That's a little bit hard to see. But no matter which way you slice it, you can turn on the Summer League and you can find just guy after guy after guy after guy who plays super, super impressive basketball. If you go to the Summer League schedule right now, ESPN, NBA, whatever it is, and you just take a look at yesterday and you see, hey, yeah, Jeff Doughton scored 18 points. Jalen Wells scored 27 points for Memphis. You see that Kenny Lofton scored 18 in a loss. And it's worrisome because Kenny Lofton's team is always losing. He's playing on Utah right now. Kenny Lofton's team, he's always losing, but Lofton is always scoring nearly 20 points. And then you look at some previous games. You go back to Monday, and you see that Scottie Pippen looked unbelievable going head-to-head with Keontae George. You had Ricky Council, the aforementioned. Jeff Doughton, again in another game, scoring 18 over there for the Sixers. Jalen Wells putting up another 27 points for Memphis. There are good players all across the league. Another 18-point game from Kenny Lofton, Utah playing Oklahoma City. There's just good players everywhere, and teams are really starting to value the G League. Teams are starting to value this development, and if you didn't see enough of that throughout the league, just take a look at it from the way JJ Redick was talking about it as he was introduced. It was a whole thing. It was more like JJ Redick was brought in to start this development and like full encompassing player from, like bringing them up, player development. That's what JJ Redick seemed to be bringing to the table. Is he kept just saying holistic, building it up from the bottom. And now they have Bronny James down there. They have Connect, and they're just going to keep building. And that's the way the entire league is doing it now. There's value in the G League. And then you have Miami bringing up Khalil Ware. That guy looks really good. He looks really good. And you have Swider over there. When guys can shoot threes like that, it's a big deal. You throw Ware onto the Miami Heat. You throw Swider there, and you say, hey, the Miami Heat didn't really improve. But, hey, Terry Rozier's going to be back. His neck injury is okay now. So you have Jimmy. You have now Khalil Ware. You have Jovic, who's getting better. You have their rookie from last year, Jaime Jaquez. You have Swider. You have Tyler Hero, if he can stay healthy a little bit. I mean, they still will have a bunch of players, and they have Bam Adebayo still. So everyone just seems to be improving. There's just so many more good players just coming into the league again and again and again. It's just an unbelievable time for the NBA. You even have on Memphis. I was watching a couple of Memphis games, and you had this guy was reminding me of Jimmer Fredette. This guy from Memphis. I'd love to see if I could find his name. Harris. Was it Harris? Or Spencer? Yeah, Spencer. This guy is Spencer. He's a guard. He's this little white guy, and he was just ripping down 3-pointers in several games for Memphis. And you're like, Memphis, how many of these guys do you have? These guys are everywhere. It's a good time to be an NBA fan, and we're going to come back to you with more and more and more podcasts talking about everything going on in the league all the way until we start the next season, and it's going to be a good one. It should be a good one. As always, we're your source for a great time every time, and until next time, we are out.